Hi, this is History with me, Dan. And this is a 110-year-old landmark of Hartford, Connecticut. But I'm not in Hartford. I'm at the Connecticut Trolley Museum in East Windsor. So what is this landmark, and how did it get here? From 1913 to 1976, this structure stood near the intersection of Main and State Streets, just north of the old State House in downtown Hartford. This was a busy area where trolley cars and later buses lined up, and passengers needed a safe place to wait as traffic zoomed around them. Today, this spot is much quieter because the stretch of State Street between Main and Market Street is now a brick-paved pedestrian-only area. Recently, an outline indicating where the Aisle of Safety once stood was placed on the walkway. Back in the 1890s, before there was an Aisle of Safety, there weren't any automobiles or buses yet. The streets were traversed by horse-drawn carriages, occasional bicycles, and trolley cars. The trolleys traveled on a network of tracks that was rapidly expanding to spread throughout Hartford and into the suburbs. Trolleys had first appeared way back in 1863 as horse-drawn cars that rode over steel rails. In the 1880s, the Hartford and Wethersfield Horse Railroad Company became one of the pioneers in the nation to start electrifying its cars, a process that was completed in the 1890s. Eventually, the Hartford and Wethersfield Horse Railroad Company changed its name to the Hartford Street Railway Company, and later it was taken over by the Connecticut Company. With so much traffic, the vicinity of State and Main could be dangerous. Efforts to create a safe waiting area for trolley passengers north of the old State House, which at the time was serving as Hartford City Hall, went back to 1909. It was not until 1912 that action was finally taken. As the Hartford Courant newspaper reported on July 25th of that year, quote, "The oft-discussed project of roping off a portion of State Street to protect people who are waiting for trolley cars near City Hall from being run into by automobiles was put into effect yesterday morning. Now those who wish to stand in State Street and wait for a car must do so in the roped enclosure. There are means of access to the enclosure, but the general effect is to mass the waiting public. The plan is in the way of an experiment, and it yet remains to be seen how well it will work." Unquote. Opinion was divided about the new arrangement. Some, including members of the police, worried that the ropes might hinder people's escape from a runaway horse. Or, as the Courant put it, quote, "Ladies who seek refuge along the State Street sidewalk in a rainstorm would also have difficulty hurdling the ropes when scrambling for a car." Unquote. Skeptics argued that before the ropes had been put up, there hadn't been an accident because there was plenty of room and people were on guard. But as the Courant pointed out, quote, "For automobilists, the change is desirable as it allows them to continue their course without the difficulties met with when the crowd was scattered all over the street." Unquote. Early the following year, the artist Charles Noel Flagg wrote to the Board of Street Commissioners, suggesting that the waiting area, instead of being merely enclosed with ropes, be raised above the level of the rest of the pavement. The board embraced this idea and soon erected a platform 100 feet long and averaging 15 feet wide, which tapered at its eastern end where State Street was narrower. There was an initial hiccup, however, as the Current reported on July 18, 1913, quote, "Since the construction of the Aisle of Safety on State Street, it has been found not to be as safe as was first thought. It was built so as to just clear the steps of the single-step trolley cars, and it was found that the double-step cars overlapped. As a result, a number of people have been knocked down by trolley cars when they thought they were standing in comparative safety. The street board, realizing the danger, has had a red line painted on the platform, marking the danger part. All who stand back of the line are safe," unquote. The next step, in November of 1913, was to erect a roof over the Aisle of Safety. The bid for construction was won by contractor Charles D. Malone. The completed roof would have a flat inner deck made of copper and a sloping outer deck covered by green terracotta tiles. The Spanish-style tiles were made to order, and due to a delay in receiving them, a temporary roof was put up to cover the shelter until the tiles finally arrived in November of 1914. The roof was supported by wooden pillars and a wood frame. City engineer Roscoe N. Clark had opted for wood construction instead of masonry or steel in order to cut down on costs. Clark figured that it would basically be a temporary structure. I doubt he ever could have imagined it would be preserved at a museum over a century later. The roof was 55 feet long, and it covered about half the length of the Aisle of Safety platform. For drainage, the trolley shelter originally had a single gutter drain at its northeast corner. It also had a removable wall with windows along its northern side. At some point, the green roof tiles were painted red. Trolleys were phased out in the 1930s to be replaced by buses. For instance, the last trolley car from Hartford to New Britain left the Aisle of Safety at 12:05 a.m. on Sunday, April 25, 1937. To be replaced a few hours later by bus service. All trolley service in Hartford was discontinued in 1941. The Aisle of Safety continued as a bus station for the next few decades. In 1947, the Board of Street Commissioners approved the installation of a loudspeaker system to announce the arrival and departure of the many buses that stopped there each day. In 1976, the bus shelter was retired, but the Knox Foundation saved the structure by moving it to the southwest corner of Asylum and Trumbull Streets, where it would remain for the next 12 years. Although initially used as an open-air market, it eventually became a parking space for construction workers' motorcycles. In 1988, the structure was moved again, this time to the Trolley Museum. The Aisle of Safety still needed a full restoration to return it to its original condition. This $175,000 project took place in 2019 and included the installation of new green roof tiles, duplicating the originals and made by the same company that had produced them over a century earlier. One thing, though, is different from 110 years ago. Instead of just one drain pipe, now there's 4, one on each corner. So if you want to visit the Aisle of Safety, head to the Connecticut Trolley Museum in East Windsor.